Hey everyone, Kevin here, and welcome back to my channel. So, for people moving into the corporate learning and development field from teaching, they often run headlong into this mentality that says teaching children and adults are completely different things, and that they need to learn how to make content relevant or applicable to adults because all they've known is how to teach children. But I really need to push back on that because it frankly distorts our industry and the experience of transitioning teachers or anyone who's moving from education into this field. Are there differences between pedagogy and andragogy? Yeah, sure. And I've mentioned that before going back to my absolute earliest videos on YouTube. But that doesn't mean there's no overlap whatsoever, and that when you suddenly turn 18 and become an adult, that your entire way of learning and processing information changes. I mean, that's an idiotic notion, and honestly, a bit gatekeeping for current L&D professionals to say. Good teaching and good adult learning share far more in common than their differences, and there's really only one main difference between the two anyway. That being how learners approach the information and the goal of content delivery. With children, you're building foundational knowledge that they often have never had exposure to before or an understanding of, and thus content delivery is a little more on the expansive side when factoring in a structured school day, especially considering that kids are often learning many different topics in that single day, moving between classes and disciplines, so their attention is a little more divided between all of those topics. The goal of learning in pedagogy is to expose students and kids to knowledge in its many different forms and give them tools needed to start to understand and critically think about that information. And that takes many different forms, from activities to essays and class discussion or debates. The aim is to get them to comprehend large, all encompassing topics that they will later use in their career in some capacity. On the other hand, with adults, you're extending their pre existing knowledge and helping them improve in their roles at work. It's more in the moment development or clarification of processes and solving of training problems. Also, their time is far more limited since they have to often fit in training whenever and wherever they can. As a result, their learning needs to be more direct and to the point with relevant scenario based practice. You'll find adults more often wanting very clear cut and straightforward information that they will be able to immediately take, turn around, and then apply on the job. That's even the entire point of solving a training problem that IDs do on a daily basis. We want to see workers improve and correct problems or be ready to implement any changes that a company makes to its existing practices. But does any of that alter learning itself? Well, no, not really. Any information, training, or practice you have a child or adult do will and should always be learner centered, collaborative in some way, purposeful to achieve whatever the needed end result is, and at some level needs to be active rather than passive. A lot of those people who continue to categorize pedagogy and andragogy as totally separate things argue that one side or another needs to emphasize relevance, autonomy, and critical thinking. But don't kids and adults both need that in their learning? In fact, most teachers have been designing learning this way for generations, and instructional designers do so as well because our learners, again, also need content tailored to their circumstance as well, just for differing reasons. So when people say teachers have to learn how to make content relevant for adult learners before transitioning into L&D, I have to kind of call BS a bit because teachers already know how to present content to people. All they need to learn is the general adult learning theories out there and the authoring tools on how to make that information solve training problems rather than form foundational knowledge. It is a mindset shift from what they're already doing and not being a subject matter expert in the learning they're creating, yes, but not a complete mindset shift away from the learning they're already accustomed to from the classroom. And that's because effective teaching at any age level is about knowing and administering learning in a way that would get someone to learn and use that information. It seriously doesn't matter if someone is 8 or 38. The same basic principles apply. Again, the only main difference is the goal of the learning, because pedagogy and andragogy are both learning at their core, just for different purposes, which is also why those similarities often help teachers to become good instructional designers or L&D professionals in general. They know how people learn, they just need guidance on how to administer it to achieve slightly different things. And as with any career change, there will be things which are familiar and aren't familiar. But if you're a teacher or worked in education at all and are watching right now because you're looking to move into the field, you've got a lot less to worry about than you think. Pedagogy and andragogy are not all that different from one another, no matter what anyone says, because learning for both needs to be relevant and helpful. The only real difference is how that information is presented and what the end goal is. So just keep that in mind. Well, guys, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please take a moment to click like and subscribe to stay up to date with all of my content, and it also really helps out the algorithm, so thank you in advance for that too. But for now, I've been Kevin, and I will see you in the next video.